It's July and the Backyard Farmer Garden is looking really great this year. For those of you who haven't had a chance to come visit, follow right along. We're going to take you on a little bit of a tour, starting with the entrance gate. This was on purpose. Any good garden, any good space should have a way to get in that is inviting, that is of the right scale, that suggests this is the place where you come in to enjoy all the beauty and all the magic. So we trot right along into the first piece, and now we're in the sunshine. And this end of the garden is actually the All-America Selections space. It is one of the newer areas of the garden. Every single year this changes. And it changes because we are an All-America display garden, which we talk about a lot on Backyard Farmer. The fun part about it is a mix of vegetables, flowers, plants that the master gardeners decided they wanted to use in the garden, as well as the things that came to us from All-America. So let's look at a couple of things in here that are fun and how the design has come to fruition. If you look just right here, it is a combination of all annual, except of course for the milkweed, which comes up wherever it wants to come up in our garden. And it is a combination of great colors. So it's a little bit of what we call polka dot, which is every other one, but you'll also notice it's triangulated. So it's not in a line, in a line, in a line. We have the chartreuse, and then we have the purple in one of the other plants, and then we have the white, which is going to set off all of those other colors. And this has actually become a border, which again focuses attention on the sign for the Backyard Farmer Garden. If we wander off this way, past some really interesting brassicas, which are cabbage and broccoli that refused to actually produce heads this year because it was so hot, and a tomato, and a little bit of other plant material in there, and a straw coating or covering over the soil, which does help hold moisture, keeps those weeds down. Then we're into the raised beds. Lots and lots and lots of people want to garden in raised beds. We've been doing this for years. We talk about it a lot. They get changed out as the season progresses, and you can see we have some gaps and some holes and some little bitty new plants started. This year our Swiss chard, actually it's on steroids. It's just crazy. This is Bright Lights. We've done a lot of harvesting on it. It doesn't seem to mind the heat at all this year, which is also quite interesting. And then we have our trellises for our peas. Peas have kind of seen their day because it's so hot. And of course, everybody who comes through the garden picks a pea and eats it because you just can't help yourself. We have beans started, which again will be one of those great things that we do in our garden, which is do the succession of cropping. So we don't have soil just sitting there. And this is something you could do in your own home garden as well. And then in the next raised bed, this is really fun. Our master gardeners this weekend spent a lot of time tying these strings onto our trellis to get this little vine to go ahead and hang on. This is called mouse melon or cucamelon, and you can see the bitty little melons that are starting. They're really quite tasty. They're only about this big when they're ripe, and this is one of the ones that children actually love. So look at that little bitty thing, but then you can imagine that if we hadn't done some trellising or some more string on it, it would be all over the place and you wouldn't really be able to enjoy it. So if you look at this raised bed and all these raised beds, we can do a lot of growing of vegetables in our raised beds. You can mix in things that are also ornamental. And of course, in our containers behind us, we do a lot of mixing as well. We come into a different part of the garden, which is really kind of the transition. Right here, you can see we still have that mix of vegetables and flowers. Our tomatoes are kind of looking like everybody else's tomatoes. Don't ask us where you can get these cages, because you can't. Unfortunately, this was a COVID casualty from the company from Newman Grove that made them. There's some knockoffs, these are the best. And yeah, no, you can't have any. So if we go this way, one of the things in our garden is we have a lot of different paths and we have beds in between. And deliberately, we tried to identify, let's do some nice curvilinear beds. This is a space on campus. And even in your own garden where, you know, the curves, the casualty of a curve makes you feel a little differently about the space, but it also lets people change their mind. Turn around, go the other direction, pause and look at something. From a management standpoint, which is huge in doing any garden design and doing any planting, we can actually reach it from both sides, from all sides. So that helps us be able to stay off of our really precious soils. The other thing that we can look at right here is what happens when Mother Nature says, okay, it's my turn. Here are all of these milkweeds. We are getting so many questions, of course, every single year about what in the world is on the milkweed. There are those aphids. There are those aphids. There are those aphids. There's a nice little sweat bee. And then there are those aphids. And if we're lucky, we would probably find, oh, there's one, or there she went, a lady beetle. There's probably some larvae on here somewhere, so there's some beneficials that are kind of helping. But if you see in your garden, you see on any plant sort of this sticky, shiny surface, that means you've got some aphids going on. And that's what we call the honeydew on those. So we're into perennials and woody shrubs. And again, if you look at this garden in July, it is completely different from early and certainly late. A lot of the plants in the perennial area were planted deliberately so that they would be beautiful in the fall when students come back. Over time, of course, since we kind of let things do their own thing in this garden, we have some that became incredibly happy, way too happy. And that does include our fall blooming asters. One of my favorites is Radon's favorite. It's Aster oblongifolius, which is aromatic aster. Smaller foliage, very, very drought resistant. Come fall, it will be absolutely covered with blue, sky blue, purple blue flowers, depending on who it's met and who it's crossed with. But also absolutely every single butterfly, pollinators, all of those wonderful insects we love in the garden. That said, it is one of the plants that we are going to be changing out a little bit because we need some space for some other plants. Doesn't really like a lot of water either. Now, if we wander through, you can also see a lot of change in height in here. I'm not the tallest person on the face of the earth, but one thing you can do in any garden is you can actually differentiate spaces based on the height of the plants that you use. So if you're 2 feet and under and you sweep up to something tall, that encloses the space. If you stay down like this, you can see out and beyond and in effect borrow space from someplace else. In this case, as I look that way, I don't want to look that way, but if I look this way, I can see the prairie and some of the trees behind. If all these plants in our garden were high, you wouldn't be able to see that. The space would feel completely differently. So if we look here, we have the bee house or the bee hotel. It's been here for a lot of years. Our entomologist did say he does need to rebuild it. It's really fun for people to see it, but if you've got one, you need to know that you really do need to change it out. So, you know, you can end up with diseases, you can end up with holes that are unfilled. Some of these things deteriorate. We pretty much always have a wasp's nest in ours. Once in a while we have a robin's nest sitting in there somewhere. And so if you want to attract those pollinators, those solitaries, it's a great way to do it. If you don't want to go to this amount of work or enjoy it, just let them come in because you've used a huge diversity of plants. Now, if we wander up here, in addition to those asters, let's talk about plants that we thought we wanted that we obviously made a mistake on. Because as gardeners, we all make mistakes. This is horseradish. And behind it is some asparagus. We had horseradish and asparagus in here. We'll talk about deer villa in a minute. But we have torn the horseradish out. We've torn the asparagus out again and again and again because we want this space for other plants. And you need to give those perennials in the garden their own space or place, especially if they tend to want to come back. Or in the case of horseradish, if we really wanted to harvest it, we have to dig it up and then we have to do kind of all this damage to be able to get it out of the ground, and that leaves a big hole in the garden. So hopefully, maybe this year, we will get the horseradish out. We will get the asparagus back where it belongs. I'll be able to capture this space because I am greedy and I am a plant nerd and I want more and more and more of interesting, unusual plants so that we can show you what works for us and what doesn't work. So horseradish aside, we come up here. So many people love the hardy hibiscus. This one has been in the garden for a number of years. The fun part about this one is you've got purple foliage, you've got these fabulous big flowers. You can see the buds that have been set. So in the best of all times and all worlds, we will have flowers appearing and appearing and appearing. Each one just lasts a day. So what you really want with these hardy hibiscus, no matter the color you choose, you want ones that clearly have strong stems. They're going to put on a lot of buds. We're not going to expect every single one of these to open because there are just so many. But you want over and over and over again, you want those flowers to occur. And it's such a cool structure in the botanical world. So look at that pollen fly. Isn't that cool? That's just so cool. And of course, we have to have Go Big Red in our garden. This is also a spot where I talk about texture and bold with very, very fine. This is one of our selections of a native grass. This is Blonde Ambition, Blue Grama. This year, Blonde Ambition has been very ambitious. She's gotten really tall with these fun little mustache or flag seed heads. But look at how they float above the fine texture of the grass that then sets itself off against the hibiscus. So you've got the fine texture, maybe a little shorter in most years. The hibiscus, again, is going to be maybe about this size always, and they play off one another as opposed to everything being either fine textured or very, very bold textured. We wander up into what kind of an intersection. So again, in a landscape, in a garden, you sort of need to make decision points. Where am I going to go? What do I want to look at? You either set a focal point or you have an exit or an entrance. So people coming from a different direction can still get in, and then you make a decision. And you can either do something that says go this way, or you can say, all right, lots of choices here. We have a colony in here that we are attempting again to bring under control because we have an aster that wants to take over the world, and it's not one of the oblongifolious ones. We have one of the older selections of Russian sage, which is beautiful, doesn't like the water so well, which is a little of the reason that it's flopping. And we did tuck a shrub in. This is a fabulous viburnum, one of the very few that we have on campus. We have a handful of other shrubs in here on this end because that gives us some structure in the winter. We're going to let almost everything stand in our garden. And that will then give us winter texture, winter interest, let the birds come in, pick off seed heads if we still have any left, give us the ideas for, okay, we don't have to go in and completely change everything. So come August or September, when we come back through, this will look like a different garden entirely. But this decision point right here, you look at what we've done. We've whacked the tops off this aster several times. We've cut it back, we've pulled it back, because one of the things you want to do in a garden as well is make sure that you have enough room for people to be able to enjoy it and not feel like there's a snake or there's a spider or something. I have wide shoulders, and so one of the things that I do when I teach this is I will have someone else stand next to me on a path and then I'll just push them off. And they get the idea that, wait a minute, 4 feet is maybe not wide enough, depending on how fast you want people to walk. The smaller the path, the narrower the path, the wigglier the path, the slower people will go. And that gives them time to focus on the beauty around them. So here's the rain chain. This is also one of our really fun parts of the garden. And oh, by the way, here's that narrow path, and this is cut back as of Monday from where it was before. But the rain chain is built properly. Up on the shady end here, this is the first one. This is the one where the water comes in, the water sits, the water percolates, cleans all those pollutants out, goes under into 2, 3, 4, and 5. In our rain chain, we did what people should do or could do, which is we made it simple. We didn't do soil amendment, partly because we didn't have to. The soil percolated pretty well, except for in one of them. We put the plants in small. We didn't mulch. We let Mother Nature do the mulch. And now we are letting whatever wants to take over and seed itself or spread in by rhizome or stolon do that. So it covers the ground. So we really don't need to mulch again. We will let the plant material mulch. And right now what we have going on is we have a lot of liatris that has seeded itself about, as well as the corms have been moved. We do have some grasses that have come in. You can start to see them poking up. Most of the ones in here now are actually selections of switchgrass. We did have maiden grass, which has spread from somewhere else. That is not one of our native grasses. We have our eyes on that one. So again, identification is really important. We're going to be recreating a lot of our signs and QR codes up here because in a public space, they start to disappear. So now we're into shade land and balloon flower and lots of woody plant material. That will be a discussion for another day because some of them did not read the book. They got too big. I want the space. But they become the backdrop from downhill for everything going on in the garden in July, August, September, all months of the year.